Today we are going to remove the stock fan from this Omtech 60 watt. It's the MF2028, so 20 by 28 inch bed. Getting rid of the stock fan, so I'm going to start with the basic removal procedures, and then I'm going to be installing an inline fan from AC Infinity, which is the one that's recommended on the Omtech website and in the Omtech Facebook group. So to remove this fan is pretty simple, just starting with, looks like there are a couple of screws and bolts. So I'll show you here. This is not just a screw, but it's a screw and a nut. So I'm going to take this guy. I believe we've got one on the right side and one on the left. I'm going to hang on to those for reinstallation, because once I get the fan out, I need to replace this duct, and hopefully I can also remove the part behind this that's got the holes cut out on it. Let's see. I'm not sure if that has to be cut out or if that's just a plate. But so there is the stock fan. You can see right behind this, and it is installed basically the opposite way. So it looks like I'm going to have to access those bolts from the inside. So let's get a view of that. Now we have a pretty good view of the fan from the inside of the machine. So I just dropped a little bottom access panel here to get access to these screws. So pretty simple. Just gonna pop those 4 screws out. There they are. Not loose, which I suppose is a pretty good thing. They have to change bits here. Got a pretty small bit on this. It's actually not that small. So, all my screwdrivers, straight, standard, even a bit removal bit or a screw removal bit would not budge these. They're stripped out now, so I'm just going to drill these out. They're not needed, so we're just going to get rid of them. So here's that little bit of fun for us. Let's see. Nope, gotta go. Third time's a charm, right? So now, as you can see, hello, got that out and pop that screw out. And then I will show you here in a second how to remove the fan, and we'll deal with the wiring. Okay, let me show you what we were dealing with here. These are the 2 screws that I was able to remove. You can see they're just basic machine screws. I'm not sure why they were being so difficult, other than maybe they're just cheap, and then they're basically tapped into these holes here. So you can see those are threaded. So sometimes dissimilar metals or no lube, you know, it just causes the screw to lock up. So that's basically that. But just hopefully yours is not this difficult to try and remove. I used quite a number of things. This is what I was starting with on my electric screwdriver. This is a Phillips number 2 bit, and that you know, fits pretty well, but it was not breaking it loose. So I tried some different Phillips, or excuse me, I tried some different Phillips number 2 and number 1. None of them cracked the code. You saw me in there with a straight screwdriver as well. This big guy, because these are both Phillips and standard, but still not able to break it loose with this guy. I got the electric drill out, you know, and tried this bit, still couldn't get it out. So eventually that's when I decided, well, I'm gonna just drill this out. So I started here, this is 3/32, and just put that in the center. It's a nice guide. I was able to drill in and then drill again with a 1/8 inch bit. And then the last item that you saw me use there, this is a set of bits that I got years ago from Craftsman. And these are made to remove damaged screws. So there's three, I'm pulling, I keep grabbing the wrong tool because I have so much stuff here right now. So this is the third and the smallest of the bit, and these are just cut backwards essentially. So they're made to, as you go in reverse, they're made to dig into the metal and hopefully bite in and then help you to remove the screw. But this guy initially, it was just basically shredding these things. It wasn't cutting in enough to pull it out, so that's when I decided to drill it. And then I finished with this, and it just basically, I think, popped the top of the head off after I had drilled through, and then of course the fan fell out. So hopefully you don't have to go through all of that like I just did, and your 4 screws will come out a whole lot easier. All right, now we're going to deal with the fan itself. So the first thing we need to do is remove the fan. So you can see here, there's a 110 volt line that runs to the fan to give it power. And this obviously comes on when the machine comes on. So I'm just gonna cut that away, and then we're going to expose this. Now, you're gonna need to take care of this wiring, and I'm gonna do that here in a second once I have a free hand. But that will let us pull the fan out, and now you can see how the fan is actually attached to this piece of metal. Now, I could remove this fan from the piece of metal, but honestly, there's not a whole lot of reason to, because I don't want this piece of metal in there. These holes are just gonna get clogged up with debris, and it's gonna restrict the airflow. So let's take care of that wiring. We'll get that all cleaned up, and then we'll put the duct back on, and we'll go from there. All right, now we're gonna take care of this wiring. So, most important step is to make sure that there is no power to the unit. So not only is the power strip that this laser is plugged into switched off, but I unplugged the laser power cord as well. So there is no power to this unit. It's gonna wreck your day if you shock yourself. So let's not do that. So I am going to clip this off here. This is just some insulation that they've put over these connections to keep everything from shorting out. So cut the wires one at a time. If you cut them both and there's residual power, which there shouldn't be, but there's no sense in, you know, teasing the tiger. So if you cut them one at a time, you're a lot less likely to have any kind of arcing. I am using insulated tools here, and to be super safe, you could wear gloves as well. But so now this fan is completely removed from the unit. No need to take it off of that. And I've got these 2 wires here. So what I'm going to do with these wires is I actually brought out a little bit of heat shrink tubing. So you could just tape these off if you wanted to. I'm going to go a little extra on mine and put a bit of heat shrink tubing, kind of half cover them. And that just prevents, you can see, if I can sort of tilt this toward the camera, you can see there's the exposed ends there. And you just don't want those flopping around, because if they ground out on the cabinet, it's going to cause problems if it doesn't cause an electrical hazard and shock you, but we just want to do whatever we can to prevent that. So I'm going to put a little bit of heat shrink tubing on there, and then just go ahead and heat that up a bit. And that's just going to cover off that end so that there's much less opportunity for anything to touch those and cause an arc. And now with those done, I will take a little bit of your standard black electrical tape, and I'm just going to tape that up. And I'm going to push those wires through, just because this is not the wisest way to run a 110 volt line just through this, because typically what you'd want to see there is a rubber grommet, and that'll prevent these wires from rubbing on the case here. And again, if it rubs away that insulation, you can have a problem. So I'm going to push those through and then take care of this last part from the back. Okay, so now you can see we've got our two wires here. They are literally just coming out of a cable run and going back through that hole. So now we're just gonna happily tape these guys up, and that's going to keep those together. And let's see, I think what I'm gonna do, probably just tuck them back. Give you an idea of what's going on here. So this is the cable run. This runs along the back. There's your air assist pump, and this cable run is just carrying a few wires through, and this just gets kind of stuck down. So I am going to just go ahead and tuck these back in here. I'm going to fold it over a bit, keep it inside, and then that just pops back down. So I was going to zip tie it somewhere, but really, since the cable runs there, there's no reason to even mess around with it. But here you can see we've got a couple of devices. So right there is your water flow sensor. So that tells the machine that you've got water running, and that's what will prevent the laser from firing if there's no water flow. So, and then right there you can see that's the hole that those wires were coming through, and then there's where we're going to reattach our vent outlet. Okay, as I get ready to install this back, what I'm going to do is I just have some old, this is just some kind of window, or it's just some duct foam. I don't even know what they call it, but it's just a little bit of insulation. And I'm going to make a very, very rudimentary gasket. Is it that necessary? Probably not. There's enough holes in this machine that you know, this isn't going to prevent a ton of smoke and fumes from escaping, but my philosophy is every little bit counts, right? So I don't need to go crazy with this. We're only going to line up 2 holes, so this doesn't have to be perfect, but again, it's just going to give that little bit of extra bit of a seal. This is going to be the main place that the suction is pulling from once we get everything installed. So like I said, there's only two holes 180 degrees apart, so these 2 holes here, hopefully those are the ones that are going to line up. Let me just verify that again and make sure that, yeah, that'll work. So as long as I leave those two undone or open, shouldn't have any problems putting this in. And we'll see if I can, I don't even know if I can get this, it's marginally sticky still. Guess it would probably be a little more interesting if I actually did this on camera, but yeah, you can see it's enough to still stick to my little kid scissors here. I just grabbed whatever was in my toolbox and figured that'll work. So just like I said, just kind of rough. Screws will compress this enough that I'm not worried about the little parts that are popped up too much. And again, probably not necessary. May not make any difference whatsoever in the long run. But I figure I got this thing out. I'm only going to do this once. So let's do it right the first time. Speaking of which, I will show you here in a second. Since the couple screws that I pulled out initially, the nuts and bolts, those did not have any lock washers on them, and I don't want this thing to rattle itself off. So what I've done is I went through my little parts bin and screws, and so I got a lock washer here. That's this thicker one, and then just a regular washer. And I'm going to go ahead and use those when I install this. So let's see if, yeah, I think it's not that bad. I'm probably going to hate myself for peeling this stuff off, because when I line this up, it's just gonna want to stick in place, which may be more a pain than it's worth. Guess we'll find out here quite shortly if I should applaud myself for doing this or not. All right. So we got all of that out, and we're just going to hopefully, see, that's what I was afraid of. Makes it a little bit trickier because now I've got extra forces at work here. This stuff doesn't want to. So I think what we're gonna do, pardon my big head, is try and line. There, I just have to do the smart thing. Now it's not so bad. So we use that to hold everything in. Put our screws on. And then I'm going to go to the back side here. And okay, so we have that installed, and I want to make a little point here, something that I discovered. So initially, I put those screws in basically from this side through, but what I just realized is these screws are so long, and I think that's probably... I don't remember how they were in originally. I'd have to go look at the video. But if you put them in that way, they'll hit the bed. So as you lower the bed, actually let me do that, you can see that as I lower this bed, it will actually come down to that window, and it'll cross where those screws would stick out. So had I got this whole installation done and not realized that, it would have, so right here, Now this bed is parallel with those screws, and you could solve that with shorter screws, but it's just as easy to put these in this way. Okay, so we have that installed, and I want to make a little point here, something that I discovered. So initially, I put those screws in basically from this side through, but what I just realized is these screws are so long, and I think that's probably, I don't remember how they were in originally. I'd have to go look at the video. But if you put them in that way, they'll hit the bed. So as you lower the bed, actually let me do that, you can see that as I lower this bed, it will actually come down to that window, and it'll cross where those screws would stick out. So had I got this whole installation done and not realized that, it would have, so right here, now this bed is parallel with those screws, and you could solve that with shorter screws, but it's just as easy to put these in this way. Okay, so it is in there now. Just very easy to use a wrench here to hold your nut stable, and then screw it in from the back side, and you're good to go. So look at all that char. Somebody's been using his laser. All right, so now we are ready to attach our ductwork, and we'll be putting in the fan. And yeah, this job is taking longer than I thought, but it's really not that difficult. The hardest part was just getting that plate out because of those screws, but we're getting there. All right, very quickly, let's go over what we're going to be using here. So these are the items that I've purchased for my inline fan. So starting with the 6-inch AC Infinity fan. So I'm going to be mounting that. I also purchased this 6-inch black ductwork. This silver is the duct that came with the Omtech laser. I have 2 sets of 6-inch clamps there to attach the hoses or ductwork, and then finally I have a 6-inch vent or duct grill that's also from AC Infinity. I'll link all that stuff here down below in the comments, so if you want to see what I used, you can take a look at that. So that is the pieces and parts that we're going to utilize for this installation. Okay, so another little tip for you as you tackle this. Once you get this on, you just kind of have to wrestle with it a little bit. It's always fun to get these things all lined up and not folded over on the inside, but you know, if you put your hand in here, you can kind of make sure and guide it along. And then I've always found that if you get a part started sometimes, then if you just twist it around, you can kind of, it doesn't really thread, but you can get it to come all the way on. And then you just want to push it so that it's all the way back and it's not going to come undone. And the tip, if I can find where my parts are again, is you don't have a whole lot of room to work in here. Now, in hindsight, I guess I could have attached this first and then attached the mount to the laser. That might have made things easier. But as you can see, you don't have a ton of room to work inside here, and you're not going to be able to fit a full-size screwdriver in here either. So if you have a short stubby screwdriver, my bands have Phillips or flat. Again, it's kind of double. It's made both ways. You can use that. Or in this case, and these are the clamps that came with the laser, and I am just using an adapter here, and this is a 7mm socket, and I can just hand tighten this now. And once it's on there good enough, then I won't have to worry about it slipping off and falling and having to start this fun part of the project all over again. So there we go. Now it's on there pretty good. Obviously, this is not something that you want to have come off in the middle of a job, because then you're going to have a room full of smoke. I'm working out in my garage. Funny enough, it is December. It's a very foggy day, and I can smell, it already smells like wood smoke. Somebody's got their fireplace roared up, even though it's like 70 degrees outside, but you know, that's how we do things here in Florida. 70 degrees is pretty chilly. So we're gonna give this a couple little extra turns. Now, that is on there, and that is not coming off. Next, we need to set this up for mounting. So after taking a quick look in the instruction manual, we have some mounting rings on this fan. And we want to loosen these. And that's going to basically allow us to take the motor out of the mount. Let's see what's going on here. So, hopefully, let's see. I'm not sure if you have to loosen these or take these all the way. I'm hoping that I maybe don't. But that's about as. There we go. So if you loosen them almost to the point where the bolt comes off, then that will pop out. And then the motor itself comes out of the mounting area. And the reason that we need to do that is because that just gives us access to the mounting holes there. And I'm going to place this right here. And yeah, let's see. All right, now that we've got those marked, I'm just going to pre-drill these. These I'm going to go at an angle since they're kind of towards the edge of the wood, and I don't want it to just split and not hold. So, got that done. I've got the this fan comes with a whole little packet full of mounting hardware for the fan and the wiring and the remote, and it's got these mounting screws and mollies. So if you're not putting it into wood and you need to use a molly, then you've got that. Now, I really doubt this makes a difference, but it does have a mark here for direction, but that's going to just help you when I reinstall this. But we're going to keep that because I'm going to be sucking air from the laser and then blowing out into the window mount once I get that far. So free up my hands. Put our first. I'm just going to start it with these and then finish it with the drill because it's a lot stronger. It's a little bit easier to get into a semi-tight space. There we go. Smash into the camera, of course. All right, that guy is in there. And so our fan also, you can see there's an arrow indicating the direction of flow. So we want to make sure that that is the correct way around. And then this guy, let's get that back on there. And make sure, since I have this curtain that will normally be pulled, just so people can in my garage see all these toys. I want to make sure that I don't have the control box right next to the curtain in case it ever gets a little warm. And we're just going to line these up, make sure that it's got the lip all the way around. Go. Now that is installed. So one of the things that they'll tell you is to make sure that you have the fan furthest away as possible from the laser, or closest to the where you're going to exhaust the fumes. And there's a couple reasons for this. I've actually seen people recommend either way, arguing that having the fan closest to the laser provides the most suction right at the laser, but then it's got to blow all the smoke out. And when you have that high pressure section, so your exhaust section, which this is going to be the high pressure up here, and then the suction point is your low pressure. You want to keep as much low pressure, because the high pressure, if you get a leak in this at all, which these are more prone to leak, and that's why I'm using the cheaper one for this very short run right out the window. If you get a little bit of a hole in this, and these are single ply, it's just kind of like aluminum foil, so you get a little hole in that, well, now it's going to just blow the smoke out of here. Whereas you use that, keep your suction hose short, and I'm using the higher quality one here so that I don't have that problem. So that's my logic in this portion of the game. So now we are, and hopefully that made sense. I realize that you can only see a fraction of what I'm doing, so bad on me. But anyway, so what I was saying was, this is the higher quality. I think this is like a four layer or 4-ply hose. So I've got the higher quality hose on the low pressure side. And now I could cut this hose, but I don't want to make it to where I can't move my laser, because as most of you know, you've got to be able to get to the back of the machine fairly frequently. For my next project is going to be, I've got two. One is going to be just to add a air inlet nozzle so I can use my compressor instead of the built-in air assist, and then eventually I'm going to do the solenoid system so that Lightburn can control my air assist. But those are projects down the road, so I want to make sure that I can have access, move the laser around, and if I made this hose too short, then I'd have to go through this mess here of trying to reconnect my exhaust every time I move my laser, which is not fun. So this should be a lot easier than the last one, although at this point I can't stick my hand inside, so if you've done this, you know what joy it is to fit these two together with the tight tolerances. And of course now I've got gravity working against me. So hey, if you've got recommendations on ways to make this easier, drop them in the comments below. I'm sure people will appreciate that. Alright, so we got that on there. The one nice thing is that we've got plenty of room to work now, at least as far as this portion goes. All right, so now we've got that attached and it's nice and tight. Pretty short run. I'll chill her back a little bit. So pretty happy with that. And the last piece, so we're going to have to get a little bit creative here, is going to be having our window mount. So I showed you the vent piece that I'm going to be using. Now the old vent, I had one that I used with my diode laser. It was just kind of a round hole. This one, since this is much bigger, I opted to go with something that had the grill on the front so that I don't have birds or critters or something decide to fly in there. And then, I mean, I guess they couldn't make it all the way to the laser because they couldn't really, unless it was like a lizard, get past the fan blades. But I really don't want anything, you know, taking up shot in there. So I cut, this is just kind of that splash backing. I've had this for years, but I've cut a piece of this. That's gonna sit right here. Hopefully I cut it right, yeah. It's gonna sit right there inside my window frame. And then that'll be on the outside. So actually I've marked the center of this, and the next step is gonna be to use the laser and cut a hole in the middle of this, and then we'll be able to mount this, mount the other piece, and we'll be good to go. Okay, here we are in Lightburn. So I measured the circle. It's 5 7/8 inches in diameter. So quick Google converted that over to millimeters. So roughly 149.3 is what I'm going with. So I'm going to cut this. I've done a speed test on this already. So I know, and this is with stock air assist, but I know that I can cut this same material 10 millimeters a second at 25%. So I'm just going to slow it down just to make sure that I get it a one pass good cut. So I'm going to do a speed of 8 millimeters per second at 25%. And so yeah, quick frame, make sure I'm where I think I should be, and that looks pretty good. All right, let's knock it out. Okay, so we've got that in there now, so we're just going to drill a couple of pilot holes. I guess I'll switch that out just to make this a little bit easier on me. And this guy comes with a couple of mounting screws that are actually self-tapping, but sometimes those work well, sometimes they're not. It's great. I'd rather not fight it. So now we've got that in. Got to make sure that I put this in so that blows down and not up, or so the rain doesn't automatically go in there. So this is going to just, like I said before, sit nice right in there, push down by the window, and then funny enough, being a one-man camera show, it's got its limitations. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, so we got that in there. The window goes down. And what I was saying is, funny enough, this cheap ducting that came with the laser is actually a lot easier to deal with just because they've put this plastic ring around the edge. So when you're attaching stuff, it doesn't want to fold over like the higher quality stuff. It just pretty much slides. Now it's going to make a fool out of me because it went on the other one so much easier. So there you go. That's all the more it took. It slides right on there. And we've got our... try to get that on there a little bit more. There we go. Good inch or so of plastic bite. This works a lot better if you can give it a little bit of pressure. There we go. So that is now complete. So thanks for joining with me. I know this is recorded and not live or anything like that, but so that's a nice quick inline. Oh, I guess I should finish the little bit. So I'm not gonna bore you with the wiring, but this is the control for the unit. It actually plugs in. Don't try and plug this into your phone, but it's a USB-C cable. But that plugs in there, and then you're able to control the fan speed. Oh, I think I just turned it off. But you can control the speed of the fan from this remote control. So I'm going to go ahead and tidy up the wiring here, but run that over so it's closer to the rest of the controls of the unit. That is the AC Infinity 6-inch inline fan, and that's how you do this replacement on the Omtech laser.